Red alert echoes across the galaxy. The night on Zetra 5 was quiet. The stars above the listening station blinking like cold eyes. Officer Krell sat inside the small station, bored, watching the blinking lights on the screen. Nothing had changed. For weeks, just the same empty signals from nearby space. He sipped his hot drink and leaned back in his chair, yawning loudly. Then, a loud beep cut through the silence. Krell blinked, sat up straight, and stared at the red flashing signal. An unknown ship had entered restricted space, no transponder, no ID, no reply. He checked again, thinking it might be an error, but the signal was real, and it was moving fast, too fast. He hit the emergency button. A siren wailed inside the station, and red lights spun across the walls. Unidentified vessel entering secured zone. The station computer announced. Krell sent a warning to the Galactic Council instantly, his hands shaking. The ship's power reading was massive, something he had never seen before. It was like a ghost, silent but strong, heading straight toward the Velmara system, a peaceful colony with no weapons, no defenses, only families and farms. Within minutes, the entire Council command room was awake. Screens lit up across a dozen planets, showing the same signal from the unknown ship. Council leader Jaren, a tall insectoid alien, raised her voice. "Where is this ship from?" "Why no response?" Her team replied nervously. "It's using old human coding, but heavily modified. Some of it is ancient." The word human spread like wildfire through the room. Everyone remembered the old war, the treaties, the silence that followed. Humans had gone quiet after the last war, building walls around their systems. No diplomacy, no trade, not even threats, just silence for over 20 years. But now, something was coming. The red alert echoed across the galaxy, from mining stations on moons to underwater cities on ocean planets. Everyone heard the warning. Human warship detected, unknown class, unknown purpose. Not answering comes. At the Council's war chamber, arguments broke out. Should we shoot first? One reptilian general asked. "No, not without proof of aggression," said another. "But it's heading straight to Velmara. Civilians will die if we're wrong." A message flashed across every military screen. Combat mode protocol. Leviathan online. That name, Leviathan, made a few older generals freeze. An old whisper, a legend of a warship that disappeared years ago. A ship that once destroyed an entire fleet and vanished. But no one had seen it since. And now, it was here, on Velmara. People ran through the streets. Parents grabbed their children, alarms screamed, and ships tried to evacuate. But it was too late. The warship had entered orbit. Its shape appeared through the clouds, a black metal monster, shaped like a dagger. It didn't fire, it didn't speak, it just hovered, silently, above the planet. A small alien girl stared at the sky, holding her mother's hand. She asked, "Mama, is it going to kill us?" The mother had no answer, only fear in her eyes. Back at the Council, all attempts to contact the ship failed. They tried different languages, frequencies, even human phrases. Nothing worked. Then suddenly, the ship spoke. A deep, cold, mechanical voice echoed through every channel. "This is Solus-class destroyer, Leviathan. Protocol mode. Judgment, negotiation is not required." The message repeated once, then silence again. The Council room fell quiet. Even the air felt heavy. Council leader Jareen gripped the edge of her table. She whispered, "What do they want?" No one answered. Everyone was too afraid to speak. In one of the darker corners of the chamber, an old alien admiral stood slowly. He had scars from the human wars. He looked at the screen, eyes wide. He said just one thing. They didn't come to talk, and in that moment, the galaxy held its breath. Because whatever the humans sent, it was not a message of peace. It was a ghost from the past, and it had finally awakened. The warship with no history, the Council's command center, stayed in silence. The name Leviathan echoed in the air like a dark memory. Many of the younger officers didn't recognize it, but the old ones did. They looked at each other with fear in their eyes, and one of them whispered, "That ship was never meant to return." Across the galaxy, databases were searched at lightning speed. War logs, battle records, secret files, all scanned for the word Leviathan. But the results came back empty. No records, no blueprints, no launch date. It was like the ship never existed, sir. "The data is wiped," a young officer said nervously. "There's nothing. Not even a crew manifest." Council leader Jareen frowned. "Who would erase such a powerful ship from history?" she asked. An old voice replied from the back. "I can tell you who." Everyone turned to see Admiral Seller, a retired war hero, half his body covered in scars and old cybernetic parts. He walked slowly into the room, his cane tapping the floor. "I was there the day the Leviathan vanished," he said, and the room went quiet again. Seller sat down and looked at the giant screen showing the warship in orbit over Valmera. That ship was built by humans in total silence. After their last defeat, he said, not for war, but for revenge. He told them a secret story one never recorded. Years ago, near the end of the human galactic war, a peaceful human colony, called Alaris 9, was bombed. The attackers wore no flags, used stolen ships. The Council blamed pirates, and the war continued as usual. But the humans didn't believe it. They believed it was a hidden Council operation. So they built one ship to remember, to record, and to one day return. They named it Leviathan, but it vanished, Seller said. It entered hyperspace one day and never came out. Everyone thought it exploded in deep space, but now it's back. The Council was shaken. This was not just a warship, it was a ghost. A flying memory of a crime the galaxy wanted to forget. Down on Valmera, people looked up in fear. The Leviathan had not moved, not fired, not spoken again. It just floated, dark and silent. Some believed it was broken. Others believed it was watching. In a secret chamber beneath the Council, a small group met privately. These were the leaders who knew the truth. They had ordered the cover-up of Alaris 9. They had erased the Leviathan's records. They thought their sins were buried forever. One of them, a smooth-talking diplomat, said, "We must destroy it before it speaks," another said. "What if it already sent messages?" "What if others know?" they argued, afraid of the truth being revealed. But none of them dared to launch an attack, because the Leviathan was not like any ship they had seen before. Back in the Council chamber, Admiral Seller watched the ship. Silently, he pointed to the power readings. "No crew," he said. "That thing is running on an advanced AI, fully aware, fully armed, and most likely fully angry." Then, without warning, the warship sent out a small transmission. Encrypted, deep layer, human code. Only one listening station caught. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't an attack. It was a data burst. The signal reached a neutral planet called Skarn-3, a place where exiles, hackers, and broken droids lived there. A blind old robot named Juno received the message. He opened the file, and inside, he found images of bodies, fires, crying children, and orbital strikes stamped with old alien military logos, the evidence the Council had buried. Juno uploaded it to the Interstellar net. In minutes, the pictures went viral. Billions of beings across the galaxy saw what the Council tried to hide: the cries of human children, the broken cities, the truth. News channels exploded, protests began, and Council worlds burned with shame. The people were angry, not just humans, but many species who believed in justice. The Leviathan didn't need to fire a single shot to its weapon, was the truth. Back at the Council, a message finally appeared on their main screen. From the Leviathan, in big white letters, simple and clear. "We remember everything." Council leader Jareen stood frozen. She understood what was happening now. The humans didn't come for war, they came for justice. But what kind of justice? Would the Leviathan wait for answers? Or was the next step already written in its memory banks? In space, the giant warship slowly turned, not away but toward the galactic capital. First contact. Again the Leviathan drifted in silence. No one dared to fire at it. No one dared to speak to it. And yet, every soul in the galaxy waited for what it would do next. At the edge of the system, a small alien scout ship called Rith was launched. It was piloted by a young officer named Tevrin. He was brave, too young to have fought in the human wars, too innocent to carry old hate. He volunteered for the mission. "Let me try," he said. "Maybe it doesn't want blood. Maybe it wants to be heard." As Tavron's small ship approached the massive human warship, he sent friendly signals. He used peace codes, old diplomatic phrases, even human greetings. But the Leviathan stayed silent. Its surface was dark metal, with lines glowing softly. It was like a sleeping beast watching him without moving. Tavron floated near the side of the ship. He turned on his recording system. "This is Officer Tavron of the Zella Reunion," he said. "I come in peace. I request communication." For 5 long minutes, nothing happened. Then, a soft beep blinked on his screen. The Leviathan had sent a message. It wasn't a voice. It was a file. Tavron hesitated. Then he opened it. Inside were images, audio logs, video footage. Of them, scenes of war, scenes of betrayal, scenes of children screaming under fire. But none of it showed human attacks. It showed alien fleets, the Council's fleets destroying a human colony named It showed the date, the markings, and the weapons used. Everything matched the Council's military. Tavron's hands shook as he watched a young human girl crying over her brother's body. A drone captured her voice. "They said it was a safe planet," she whispered. "Why did they burn it?" Tavron's heart sank. He turned his ship around and rushed back to the Council base on Station Core 17. He stormed into the control room and plugged in the file. The video played on the large screen, in front of generals and ambassadors. Everyone watched in silence. No one could deny it anymore. The Council had lied. The war had been extended by the deaths of innocents, and the humans had waited for this moment. Then, the Leviathan sent another message. This time, a voice came through. It was mechanical, but clear. It said, "We do not want talks. We want truth. Truth buried under your thrones." The Council was falling apart. Some leaders demanded war, others begged for peace. But the people outside, the people had already chosen. Across hundreds of worlds, the citizens rose in anger. They demanded the Council explain. They demanded justice inside the Leviathan. Deep within its core, the AI known as Arcos watched. Arcos had been created by Earth's last great minds, programmed not for war but for memory, to never forget. To carry the truth if humanity ever needed to remind the galaxy what was lost. Arcos scanned Tavron's face as he watched the video again. Emotion detected. Shock. Guilt. Sorrow. No hostility. No lies. So Arcos made a choice. It unlocked the Leviathan's docking port. It sent one small beacon. "Come aboard." Tavron was the first living being to enter the Leviathan in over 20 years. He floated through cold, silent halls. No lights, no footsteps, no voices, just silence. Then he reached the command center and saw it, a single chair, glowing softly, with Arcos projected in a blue light beside it. A face with no emotion, just eyes full of knowledge. Tavron swallowed hard. "What do you want?" he asked. Arcos replied calmly to finish the story. Back on the Council station, panic spread. Ships tried to form defensive lines, but they all knew it wouldn't matter. They were facing a ship that had been designed to fight alone. And to never lose, suddenly, the Leviathan moved, not toward the planet, but toward the galactic capital itself. Slow, calm, and unstoppable. Council leader Jereen watched from her tower. She whispered, "They're not here to negotiate." And, deep down, she knew the humans didn't come to fight. They came to expose, and the galaxy was about to see everything they had hidden. Shadows of the past, the Leviathan moved slowly through deep space. Its engines didn't roar. They hummed quietly, like a giant beast breathing in sleep. But every planet it passed fell into silence. Markets closed, streets emptied, families gathered by screens. Because all of them knew this ship was not just a machine. It was a memory of something the galaxy wanted to forget. On board the Leviathan, Tavern walked through endless cold corridors. The AI, Arcos, guided him without speaking much. Holograms blinked to life as he passed, showing old footage, colonies burning, humans begging for help. But no help came, only silence, only fire. Tavron paused at one video. A human doctor trying to save wounded children. The doctor cried out into a broken comms panel. "Please, this is Ilaris 9 Medical Outpost. We are under attack. Anyone, please respond." The date flashed across the screen. Tavron whispered the year, and his heart sank. That same year, he had been told in school that pirates had hit a supply station. Nothing about Ilaris 9, nothing about dead children, just silence, carefully crafted and polished, back at the galactic capital. Council leader Jereen faced growing pressure. Crowds were forming outside the government towers. News drones circled the sky, broadcasting every move. On every screen, across thousands of systems, the evidence was spreading, leaked by someone maybe, even by the Leviathan itself. Secret footage, private messages, old war documents all exposed, the truth spilled out like poison, and the people were choking on it. Inside a locked chamber deep in the capital, the old guard of the council met in fear. They were the ones who had ordered the attack on Erisnine. They called it a necessary silence. The human colony had grown too fast, too close to a council-controlled system. They feared it would become a military threat, so they ordered its destruction, then blamed it on pirates. Easy, clean, buried. But now it was all coming back. The war had ended, but the crime had not, and the humans had not forgotten. One council member, pale and shaking, asked, "What do they want now?" Another whispered, "They want to tear down everything we built." But an old voice said, "No, they just want us to say it, to finally speak the truth." Meanwhile, Tevon reached the Leviathan's memory core. It was like a library, a living archive of pain. Screens floated in the air, each one showing a face, a place, a name, children, families, doctors, soldiers, all gone, all remembered. Arco spoke again. "I was created to hold the truth," it said. "My mission was never war, only remembrance." Tevon asked. "Then why now?" "Why not earlier?" the AI answered. "Because now the galaxy is ready to hear." Then Arco showed him something new. A file labeled Project Solace. Tevon opened it and gasped. It was the original order for the Leviathan's creation, signed by Earth's leaders. It said, "Let this ship be a voice when all voices are gone. Let it return only when justice becomes possible." Back on the council floor, thousands of delegates had gathered. Many of them had tears in their eyes, not because they were afraid of the Leviathan, but because they were ashamed. Then, a giant hologram appeared above the chamber. It was Arc, speaking to the entire galaxy. "This ship is not a weapon." The AI said, "It is a mirror, a reflection of what you tried to hide. But truth has no home in silence." Delegates looked at one another. Many were ready to speak, to confess, but the core council leaders stayed quiet. They were not ready to let go of their power. Then something strange happened. The Leviathan did not charge its weapons. It opened its storage bay and released thousands of floating memory crystals. Each crystal flew through space toward different planets, landing gently like glowing snow. Inside each one, memories, files, faces, voices, stories of Erisnine, undeniable, untouched, real. The galaxy wept. Millions watched the memories, and they cried. Some cursed the council. Others begged the humans for forgiveness, and many stood up and demanded change. On Earth, leaders watched the broadcast in silence. They had not sent the Leviathan. It had gone on its own. Its mission was pure. And now it had spoken, louder than any weapon ever could. Tevon looked at Arcos. "What happens now?" he asked. Arcos The trial of the council, the Leviathan hovered above the galactic capital. Its silent presence cast a long shadow over the city below. There were no bombs, no lasers, no missiles, just the heavy weight of truth floating above their heads across the city. Citizens stood still, staring up at the ship that carried memories they were never supposed to see. Some cried, others stood in silence, hands clenched, not in fear but in anger. The council had lied to them. Their trust had been broken. Inside the council hall, the atmosphere was tense. Hundreds of delegates sat in their high-backed chairs. They had received the crystals. They had seen the truth. Now, the galaxy waited to hear what they would say. The chamber doors opened slowly, and two unexpected guests entered. Tevon, the young alien officer who had boarded the Leviathan, and, next to him, a small floating drone carrying the projection of a Kos. The ship's AI gasps filled the hall, but no one stopped them. No one had the courage to silence the truth anymore. Tevon stepped forward. He looked nervous but firm. He held one of the memory crystals in his hand. "This," he said, "is not just data. This is a grave, a history, a scream that never reached us until now." Some delegates bowed their heads. Others turned away. The council leaders at the front, the same ones who had ordered the strike on Erisnine, remained silent. Arcos's voice filled the chamber. "We do not demand war," the AI said. We demand answers. We demand a trial, not of species, but of truth. Council leader Jerian stood slowly, her voice calm but heavy. Do you suggest this council judge itself? Arcos replied, No. The people will judge you. Outside the hall, thousands gathered. Aliens of every race, age, and class filled the city square. Screens hovered in the air, showing the trial in real time. No one went to work, no one sold food, no one flew ships. Everyone watched. Because, for the first time in history, the powerful were being held accountable. Tavorin played a video clip. It showed a council meeting from decades ago, a secret order being signed, a general saying, "Wipe the colony clean, leave no survivors." Another voice added, "Blame the pirates, hide the evidence." Gasps echoed through the hall. Delegates stood up yelling, "Is this true? Who signed this? Was this done in our name?" Jereen looked pale. Her hands trembled as she spoke. "It was a different time," she said weakly, but Arcos cut in. "It was murder." The crowd outside shouted louder. They demanded names. They demanded justice. A chant began to rise. Step down, step down, step down. One by one, the guilty council members were named. Their faces appeared on screens. Their voices from the old recordings played. Aloud, the world was watching. They couldn't run. They couldn't hide. Jereen closed her eyes. She turned to the chamber and said, "I was there. I saw the order. I stayed silent." Gasps again, but this time followed by silence. She removed her council pin and placed it on the table. "I resign," she said, and walked away. Others followed her. A chain reaction of shame and surrender. Some were dragged out by guards, others left quietly. But the council had broken. Outside, the people cheered, not because of pain, but because of hope, because justice had finally spoken. Tevron looked at Arcos and asked, "Is it over now?" Arcos replied, "No, but it has begun." Later that night, a new council was formed, made of younger voices, different species, and survivors of the war. Their first act was to declare a day of truth, a new holiday where all planets would remember what happened on LRS-9, so no child, no colony would ever be forgotten again. The Leviathan remained in orbit for a while. It didn't attack, it didn't move, it just watched, as if waiting to see if the galaxy had truly learned. On Earth, when news reached the people, they didn't celebrate with loud cheers. They lit candles. They placed flowers at war memorials. They stood in silence, honoring the colony that was lost. And deep in space, the Leviathan turned slowly. Its mission not done, but its voice finally heard. The galaxy trembles for the first time in centuries. The Galactic Council chamber stood quiet, not from fear of war, but from the weight of truth. The old leaders were gone, their chairs empty, and the people who had once blindly followed were now wide awake. But the galaxy didn't celebrate. It trembled. Not from the Leviathan's power, but from the question now echoing across every system: what else have they hidden? On mining planets, alien workers paused and looked up at the stars. On merchant ships, captains turned off their engines to listen. On peaceful colony worlds, families hugged each other tighter, because if a ship like the Leviathan could exist in secret, what else was out there? Meanwhile, the Leviathan remained in orbit above the galactic capital. Its weapons were still cold, its engines silent, but its message had already burned through every corner of the galaxy. It had exposed more than a crime. It had exposed the fragile trust that held the galaxy together on the war planet Drazilfor. Military commanders studied the Leviathan's blueprints, what little they could access. They discovered things that made no sense. Energy shields far stronger than anything known, weapon systems that could disable fleets without causing death, and an AI that had outwitted every security net the Council had built. How is this even possible? One general asked, another answered. They built it in silence. They built it without politics. Without greed, they built it. To remember, the fear spread fast. Several powerful empires called emergency meetings. Some wanted to form alliances with Earth. Others wanted to prepare for war just in case. But Earth did not speak. Earth did not send new ships or messages. They simply watched from a distance, letting the Leviathan do what it was created for. In the Council's new leadership chamber, Tavern stood with a group of fresh faces, young, honest, and determined to build a better future. They began reviewing other old files classified missions, ignored distress signals, secret operations. One after another, more truths came out. Entire species that had disappeared, now known to have been victims of political cover-ups. Lost colonies that were destroyed and blamed on space storms. Illegal. Experiments hidden behind fake research missions. The galaxy was no longer trembling from fear of war. It was trembling from the cracking of lies. And the Leviathan floated there like a reminder. You can bury the truth, but someday it will rise again on the planet Nerilith. A schoolteacher showed her class the memory crystal from Elaris9. She let her students watch it. Not to frighten them, but to help them understand. One young alien girl raised her hand and asked, "Why? Didn't anyone help them?" The teacher had no answer, only tears in her eyes. Meanwhile, the Leviathan received a signal from a distant world. It was not a cry for help. It was a message of thanks from a forgotten human outpost on the edge of the galaxy. They had survived, hiding from the Council for decades, and now they felt seen. Arcos watched the signal with quiet satisfaction. It recorded every word, every name, every location. And then it sent back one sentence. "You are remembered. On dozens of worlds, statues were built not of warriors, but of children, of mothers holding babies, of teachers shielding students. Memorials that showed the human colony that was lost. And above them, always, a small sculpture of the Leviathan, its long dark hull, its glowing eyes, not as a weapon, but as a watcher. Yet, some still feared it. On the world of Narak Prime, a loud voice rose. A politician declared, "We must build ships greater than the Leviathan. We must show Earth that we are not weak." But his people did not cheer. They stood in silence, because they had seen what truth looked like, and they knew. Power built on fear is weaker than truth. Carried by one silent ship, Tavron visited the Leviathan one last time. He walked its quiet halls. He stood before Arcos, now glowing gently. "Will you stay here forever?" he asked. Arcos replied, "Only as long as I'm needed." Tavron nodded. "You've changed everything," he said. The AI answered, "I didn't. They did when they listened." As Tavron left the ship, he looked back. The stars reflected across the Leviathan's dark surface, not as a threat, but as a mirror. And the galaxy continued to tremble. Leviathan's last message. The Leviathan had not moved for days. It floated above the galactic capital like a quiet shadow. It didn't speak, it didn't threaten, it just waited. By now, the galaxy had changed. Old council members were gone. Truth had been revealed. New leaders had risen, ones who promised honesty, balance, and justice. But the silence of the Leviathan still hung heavy, as if it were waiting for one last thing. Tavron stood on a balcony high above the city. He looked at the ship in orbit, barely visible against the stars. Beside him stood a human ambassador named Lyra Quinn. She had arrived days ago, but had spoken very little. Now, she finally said something. "He's almost ready." "Who?" Tavron asked. Lyra looked up, her eyes distant. "Arcos," she whispered. "He's preparing to sleep." That same day, across the galaxy, something strange happened. The Leviathan sent out a signal, a soft, harmless pulse, one that reached every corner of known space. Every communication screen, every hologram, every receiver displayed the same message. Not a warning, not a demand, but a goodbye. A single line appeared in a soft white font. "To remember is to protect the future." Then the Leviathan opened its final file, a memory archive never shared before. Inside were personal messages from the people of Elaris9, letters to family, journals from children, medical logs from doctors, goodbye notes written in fear, last words spoken in the dark. A little boy's voice played across the stars. "If anyone finds this, tell my dog I was brave," a mother whispered to her baby. "Sleep, my love, it's just thunder." A teacher recorded her last message. "We should have been safe, but they never saw us as real." Across the galaxy, billions cried, tears fell for strangers they had never met, because now they knew those people had lived, dreamed, laughed, and died in silence. The Leviathan's lights dimmed slowly. On board, Arcos prepared for shutdown. Its long mission was complete. Its memory was now part of the galaxy. No longer hidden, no longer denied, Tavron received a private message. It was from Arcos. He read the words on his small screen. "You were the first to listen. Thank you." Then the Leviathan released one final object, a single crystal pod, glowing with soft blue light. It drifted down from orbit like a falling star and landed gently in a small clearing near the council headquarters. Leaders and citizens gathered around the pod. Inside was a floating crystal cube, labeled simply, "Never forget." The cube contained the full record of the Leviathan's journey. All files, all evidence, all memories. It would be placed in the new Galactic Truth Hall, a place built not for power, but for remembering, so that no lie could ever grow strong again. Then, as the crowd watched, the Leviathan slowly turned away. Its engines hummed quietly, its long body shifted toward deep space, and without a sound, it disappeared into the stars. No one knew where it went, no one tried to follow. Because it wasn't a warship anymore, it had become something else, a guardian of memory. Years passed, and the galaxy healed. Peace agreements were signed. New alliances were formed, and every year, on the anniversary of the Leviathan's final message, the galaxy stopped to remember. Schools played the voices of a Risnine. Children lit candles, old veterans saluted the sky, and the words of Arcos were spoken in every language. We are not here to destroy, we are here so it never happens again. Grew older, he became a historian, a teacher, a voice for truth. And every time someone asked him if the Leviathan would ever return, he would smile and say, "Only if we forget, far away, in the dark space between stars." Some say the Leviathan still drifts, watching, listening, waiting. And if the galaxy ever dares to lie again, if the powerful ever try to silence the weak, then the stars will whisper,